My joke got out of hand. I handcuffed my hubby to the radiator and got loud W/neighbor upstairs. I handcuffed my husband to a radiator and got loud with my neighbor while he listened to everything. I am the world's biggest fool and cheat because who in their right mind thinks sleeping with their neighbor while their husband listened is a sane idea? My joke got out of hand and now I am the joker who is being served divorce papers like a common hooker. Yes, I know it's messed up, but trust me, I never planned for things to go that far. I cheated, but it was meant to be a prank. This whole thing is super messed up to the extent that I'm sure my marriage is over. So I freaked out and now I'm here to ask if I can undo what I did, or at least if I can reduce the glaring consequences that are coming my way. It all started from my husband and I's obsession with pranks. Yes, I'm unapologetic about this little fact. I love pranks and so does my husband. In fact, we met each other through a big prank that was organized by our mutual friends. But we never once imagined that a prank would be sending the both of us to court for divorce one day. I'm now a cheater who is being tagged as loose and might possibly not have access to my husband ever again. Did I mess up? Yes, I did. How did I do it? I'll tell you that now. I can't reveal our real names, so I'll be going by the name Layla while I'll call my husband Desmond. Don't judge me, because this is the best I can come up with. Desmond and I have been married for close to 2 years now, and we dated for 4 years. Throughout our time together, we have played pranks on each other, and we've had fun. Our friends call us the Gen Z couple because we're always active no matter what. So here's the tea if you're confused. Desmond is 31 years old and he's an attorney. Yes, I've always been proud to flaunt just how smart my husband is. He's always been busy all through his life to get to where he is now, and that's why he likes to have fun whenever he gets the chance. As for me, I went to film school and became the next Angelina Jolie, but it didn't work out, so I just did little gigs and plays. But I stopped once I got married. This information is helpful because it just tells you how crazy Desmond and I are. But I think I have gone a little far this time because I have never seen my husband this angry in my entire life. Okay, I handcuffed him to a radiator and made him listen to me and my neighbor sleeping together, but like I said, things got out of hand. I love pranks, like I said, and I've always loved April Fool's Day because it was like the best day to prank people and have a reason for doing so. Desmond and I made it a thing to come up with something crazy every year, and it became our little tradition. This year, Desmond and I have been going through some rocky times in our relationship. That's mostly because Desmond has been extremely busy recently since the firm he works at has been having a lot of cases and controversies they have to clear. That has made Deskine so tired and busy that he can't keep up with my shenanigans anymore. I know what you guys have in mind to say. I'm a housewife, so I shouldn't complain that my husband is just... Well, that is partially true, but this time it was just too much. So I thought it would be great to get Desmond to be crazy about me again by getting intimate with our neighbor. I needed a reaction from him and I wanted him to feel like he was neglecting me. I thought it would be something that would remind him of just how crazy we used to be. I wanted it to be a wild prank and also something that would ease his stress off work. I do not like my neighbor romantically or have any feelings for him. I just thought he would be the best person for the prank because he already voiced out the fact that he liked me once. I brushed it off and even spoke to my husband about it. He got angry and wanted to confront the neighbor, but I let him know that it was nothing serious and there was no reason to be dramatic. But when I suddenly had the idea of pranking Desmond, the best person I could think of was the neighbor. He's a single guy with a lot of time on his hands. Frankly speaking, at first all I wanted to do was just to probably kiss my neighbor. I never actually planned to do anything crazy. For reference sake, I'll be calling my neighbor Collins. So like I said, it was never my intent to have anything serious to do with Collins. But when I got associated with him, things changed. I had to start planning for April Fool's Day like 2 months early. I knew I couldn't just wake up one day and tell a grown man I needed to use him to prank my husband. So I decided to approach Collins and tell him of my plans first. Let me just let you all know that approaching him wasn't easy at all. I mean, this is someone that had told me he had feelings for me, and then I let him know that I wasn't interested. So for me to go back for the sake of the person and ask him to help me prank my husband had to take a lot of guts. I also didn't want him to get any idea that I had secret feelings for him or anything like that. I wanted it to be a platonic prank and I needed him to just casually cooperate with me in the prank. But it later turned out to go in a direction I never expected. When I met Collins, he was confused at first and it was obvious that he didn't really like the idea. I could tell that he was still angry at me for what I did to him at the beginning. But I was kind of desperate, so I just endured his rants. Now I know how desperate I was because why did it have to be him? Please don't judge me, guys. You don't know how hard it is to want to fix a relationship without knowing how. My relationship with Desmond had always been a playful one, so all I wanted to do was keep up that same energy and watch where it goes. I love pranks, and he did too. So I thought kissing the neighbor would do the trick, but Collins was the devil himself. He was the wrong person to pick, and I ended up learning him the hard way. I should have never chosen Collins as the one to help me prank my husband. He used my weakness as an opportunity. When I told him we were just to kiss so that Desmond would be horrified and get the biggest shock of his life, Collins brought up another issue entirely. But for reference sake, let me make it clear that my definition of being horrified doesn't mean I wanted my husband to be jealous or angry. I mean, the whole point of a prank is to make sure a person sees something they do not expect, and that's exactly what I wanted to do. But then I let Collins use my head. He started calling me over to his place anytime Desmond was away for work with the excuse that we needed to plan the prank. As a jobless housewife, I stupidly listened to him, and I never resisted to go see him whenever he asked. I'm super embarrassed that I even had the audacity to go to meet him. I really took the prank too seriously, and that's where I am now. I shouldn't have let myself loose like that, and I should have tried my best to resist the temptation. It wasn't really tempting at first because when I kept going to see Collins, I didn't really have ill intentions in mind. All I really wanted to do was see him and speak to him casually. I never imagined that he would start putting ideas into my head. First of all, it started with him talking about how kissing wasn't going to be the best thing to get my husband's attention. He started giving me several ideas and made me think that the prank I had in mind wasn't good at all. I started off just ignoring him and telling him Desmond's schedule so we would be prepared for that day. But as time went on, I was influenced by him. Collins was just too friendly and sneaky with me. But I was so blinded with the idea of doing something crazy for April Fool's Day that I never gave what he was doing a second thought. Eventually, and as expected, I got too smitten with him and his corny ways. We started talking way too often, and it almost felt like we had become friends. I didn't really like the way things were going, but I never imagined that things would go out of hand. On the other side of things, Desmond and I had a strain in our relationship. According to him, his firm was losing cases and it was taking a toll on him. That really got to me, and in fact, it became a motivation for me to keep up with my plan of pranking him. I just imagined that doing something crazy and worth remembering would take his kind of work for some time and give him a reason to relax and get back to his old self. The more stressed he was at work, the more motivated I got to make our little April Fool's Day tradition a day to remember. Desmond was always busy staring at his phone and trying to crack down different cases, so I got more worried. I know I might get judged for not being able to help him out, but it's not my fault that we have two different majors. I panicked because I didn't know what to do, and it felt like my marriage was suffering as a result of everything that was going on. So obviously I decided to react in the best way I could, and the best way for me was to do something to take his kind of things. So Collins and I met up more often, and things started getting out of hand. Collins became like a bug that was always ready to disturb me. G kept on looking for more ways to get my attention, even when I wasn't ready to have anything to do with him. The worst part was that he never hesitated to come to the house even while he was aware that Desmond might be home. I didn't like all the things he was doing, but I told myself that I had to endure because I needed his help. So long story short, it was finally a week to April Fool's Day. To be honest, guys, when I said things got crazy, trust me, it did. I'm not talking just casual crazy, I'm talking wild. I might be a wild, energetic girl, but the things that Collins told me to do I've never done in my entire life. Sure, Desmond and I have a crazy intimate life, and it's always been one adventure or the other, but at that point, things went far. I had heard from a friend that people started using radiators during G-intimate moments and that it would be a nice way to have fun after I pranked Desmond. So I foolishly spoke to Collins about it since he was in on the prank. He gave me some ideas, but then I refused to take it and I decided to do something else instead. I told myself that it would be better if I handcuffed Desmond to a radiator while I went upstairs with Collins, and then waited to see his reaction. I had read a lot of books that spoke about things like that, and the outcome was always a draft and fun experience. So I imagined myself in the same situation and thought it would be nice to do the same with my husband. We already had a radiator in the house because we had used it during the early months of our marriage. But of course, we had outgrown it. We just did things like that during the early years of our marriage, and then we got too hurt to keep up with the same energy. I guess it's right to say we got tired of the honeymoon fever. But since I wanted to do something big, I had to get ready to use the radiator again. I decided to plan that aspect on my own because I just felt like it wouldn't be proper to involve Collins in that aspect. I wanted to draw boundaries even though a part of me already knew that there were a lot of boundaries that had already been crossed from the beginning of things. Now, 2 days to April Fool's Day, Desmond asked if I wanted to go out on that day. I told him no because I already had something planned. He asked if I was sure, and then he said yes. He told me he was willing to take a day off from work on that day because he wanted to spend time with me since it had been a thing in our relationship. I told him I didn't feel like going out and that I would prefer it if we just stayed home. I also advised him not to take a day off work because I knew I needed time to set up everything that day, and I didn't want him to be home and spoil it all. I just wanted him to come back from work normally, but then get surprised. But trust me, guys, things didn't end up going as smoothly as it sounds. In fact, things turned out to be worse. Finally, I'm the April Fool's Day. I was left traumatized because everything I had planned turned out to be nothing but absolute asterisk T. Nothing happened like I expected it to, and instead I ended up cheating on my husband in the worst way possible. Before I go on, let me put it out there that I had changed my mind about the prank being just about me kissing. I had decided to do something wild and get intimate with Collins. Even though I might try to deny it, I had the intention to cheat on Desmond. I mean, that's what the prank was about, on my head. It sounded right to me because I concluded that it would just end up being a one-time thing and it was not going to be anything serious. I was already too close with Collins and his corny ways that I wasn't thinking straight. I mean, what did I expect to happen at the end of the day? Did I think that Desmond would be okay with me sleeping with our neighbor? All of these thoughts are just coming now at the wrong time. None of these thoughts came when I actually needed them. I feel like the world's biggest fool and cheater right now, and that's probably because I'm actually the world's biggest fool and cheater. I should have set my priorities right, and I should have never done what I was well aware of wasn't going to end well. I didn't just do a bad thing, I can confirm that I did a stupid thing. So it went on to go like this. I planned to sleep with Collins, and he was well aware of that fact. In fact, I'm sure he planned it all the whole, and I just fell into the trap. I was the stupid one. When he gave me the idea, I took it up after only 2 days of thinking of it, and that's what just proves that I had it in mind to cheat on my husband before. It was not something that just happened that day. It's something that I had been thinking of because I don't know what even got into me and made me think of cheating as the perfect prank on April Fool's Day. So I set up the radiator after Desmond left for work and got the house ready for what I had planned. I waited for him to get back in the evening before I started the first step. I got him in the mood for all I had planned by reading him and flirting. He was really tired, but because he saw how active I was, he just let me do whatever I wanted to do. That's how I was able to handcuff him to the radiator. Don't even ask me how I got the cuffs because it's something that I already had prior to that day. He was against it at first because he was really tired and it had been a long time since we did something like that, and so he didn't want to stress himself out, but he wanted to give me some of his time, so that's how I ended up handcuffing him to the radiator. I stayed there flirting with him for a while before I told him to give him a minute. I left him there and then went upstairs. To be honest, a part of me wanted to just stop everything there and then, but after thinking of all the time I spent trying to perfect the prank, I decided to just go on with it. Plus, when I saw Collins, I just noticed that there was no way I was going to resist. He was dressed in such a way that there was no way I was going to change my mind. That's how I did the bad thing, guys. I was so stupid that I fell for his tricks, and just like that, I went on with the prank. I didn't just sleep with him, I made sure Desmond heard it. We were so loud that I'm sure there's no way he didn't hear it. It didn't help that Collins made sure the door was open. At that moment, I felt ecstatic, and I was so sure that I was giving Desmond a good prank. I thought I was saving my marriage and bringing out the fun side of my husband, not knowing that I was just being the biggest fool in the world. When I was done with Collins, I went downstairs to remove the cuffs from Desmond. I had never seen my husband that angry in my life. Desmond looked like he would have pushed me to my death if not that he had that self-control. He looked defeated and angry. Jay tried to calm him down and explain that it was a prank. But even while I was talking, I didn't believe myself anymore. I couldn't even believe the words that came out of my mouth, and it was at that moment that I asked myself if what happened was really even a prank. Because first of all, I couldn't believe what I had done, and I couldn't believe that I made my husband do something as stupid as that. I was so ashamed that explaining myself to him felt like I was self-sabotaging. Desmond didn't even hesitate to call me the biggest mistake he had ever made. He accused me of making him look like a fool. He asked what gave me the audacity to play with his ego. I mean, now that I think about it, how could I have thought handcuffing my husband to a radiator and making him listen to another man sleep with me was going to end well? Of course, I just called him weak and played on his integrity. I don't think there's any man on this earth who would accept that. Desmond was extremely angry, and he went upstairs to give Collins the biggest beating of his life. I could tell that he wanted to hurt me, and he would have hurt me if I was a man. When Desmond came downstairs, he sent me packing immediately. He told me he was deeply disappointed in me and accused me of not being there for him when he was stressed with work. He asked how I could watch him struggle with his career, and instead of helping or trying to ease his stress, I came up with ways to embarrass him and make him look weak. His words really hurt me because I could see how disappointed he was, and I could clearly see that he regretted everything being with me. I tried to make him understand that it was just a joke that went too far, but he threw me out of the house regardless. It has been extremely difficult for me to even eat or sleep. I've been thinking about all that's been happening continuously, and no part of me has been okay with it. I can't even believe that after all the stress I went through for the prank, I only ended up putting a rift in my relationship. Desmond has refused to see or speak to me. He sent me divorce papers barely 2 weeks after sending me out. None of his friends even want to hold me, and he even instructed his colleagues not to let me see him. I've been at his firm every working day since I left, but Desmond won't cave in. I hurt him and his ego so much that it feels like we were never married. It was a joke that went too far. I promise that I still love him so deeply. Collins was just a mistake. What should I do? Update. I guess I have now realized that handcuffing my husband, who is a grown man, to a radiator and sleeping with the neighbor that had expressed interest in me before will never end well. I have also realized that it is never a good idea to put a marriage to test just because you're interested in exploring things and doing something stupid. I am utterly disappointed in myself, and that's why I'm no longer ready to keep on fighting for what I lost. I have signed the divorce papers because I know that there is no longer any way out of this. I know that Desmond will never forgive, and I know he will never settle for less. The last time I saw him was at a distance, and even though I know we will meet during our divorce in court, it was clear to me that he wants absolutely nothing to do with me. Collins tried reaching out, but I made it clear to him that he's just a silly mistake I never plan on repeating ever in my life. There's no way I'd ever forgive myself for what I did, and having anything to do with Collins is going to hurt me more. I had a wonderful marriage, yet I let myself play with it. Desmond and I were doing great until I failed to be with him when he needed me, and instead I decided to cheat on him. At the end of the day, I guess the true joke is on me.